with what we're experiencing. And what I mean by reading deeper into the framework, that's reading deeper into your body, mind, and soul, and gathering a great deal of what's taking place. So that's, I have to introduce myself every time I get on. So some of my introductions are like bam, and then other ones are like I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So that's
it's
me.
all good. And actually, we were just talking a little bit previous to you coming on the show. We're talking about ancient symbols, and we were talking about ancient sciences.
Joshua,
talk to us a little bit about some of the sciences and some of the symbols from our people, from our ancestors, that people have taken today and basically took it, flipped the script, and made it their own.
For sure. Well, people have to realize that our entire history has been really quite enigmatic, and that's just from multiple stances. That we've come from a level where we're going in and out of different stages of consciousness. Like there's a point in which everyone is completely awake and in the know about their existence, and this is what I just call before the Big Bang. And then there's the point where there's somewhat of a stupor over the entire reality, where people are not in full realization of who they are, what they are, etc. And so what you had in ancient history was you had a great deal of symbolism, triggers, codes, and symbols, etc., that were encrypting levels of knowledge that would give you the instructions not only about what's been going on here, but also about how to get yourself into a higher stage of consciousness, or what I should say is a balanced stage of consciousness.
Examples of some ancient symbols that we may see every day and not realize that those are ancient symbols. And I'll give you an example. And this is the swastika. Many people that believe that was a symbol of ancient Germany, of the Third Reich, when in all actuality, that was a symbol out of ancient Kemet.
For sure. I mean, the swastika was a symbol that was still related to the four elements of power, just as the riddle within the Sphinx, but even deeper, closely related to the Naga tradition that was going on, and then the mastering of the elements. And what we do now is we've kind of like, we got some people that are taking ownerships over different symbols, and that's only because everyone does have a right to the symbolism. If we understand really where things come from on a mathematic level, it's easy for me to explain it like this, because it gets summed up, and that way we can kind of get into a different part of our conversation, because I look to expand individuals and not to so much as harp on just all the negative things going on, but how one can make it out of this vortex. But they're going to have to realize, exactly where you are. There's going to be a triangulation that occurs here when I explain a few things, and that's going to let you know where you are in time, so that way you can understand how to move above time, to move where time is not a factor, when it's like every week, every month, every year, and you're getting older, you're decaying, and all these kind of processes that are quite serious when you consider the ramifications. But first, I would say that people have to understand that what a Big Bang is a Big Bang is a point of division. So once something explodes, it splits. So sometimes we look at this modern interpretation of the Big Bang, and we think of science and all this and say, okay, well, that couldn't be the origins to life. But really the ones who brought forth that encrypted knowledge are laughing at the ones who are exoteric, or trying to interpret the Big Bang from a space, and from getting into a shuttle and seeing planet or some type of life form or planet explode and then create other life forms and planets. But really what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a point where when you have a union with an opposing force, a bang takes place. And this could be seen from a male-female nature, when two opposing forces or positive, negative poles come together and then make a generator. This could be seen from a generator itself, or a motor, where two opposing forces come together. This can be seen in combustion with the gas, where elements that are diametrically opposed to one another bang up against each other and vibrate, and this creates energy. So if we want to simplify things for ourselves, imagine that there's this one point, and then it explodes. And everything that you see between the point of origin and how far the explosion sprays out is what we're calling life, what we're calling drama, what we're calling, this is when one person was a ruler, this is when this person was on top, this is when that person was the leader, etc. Because what you're actually living in is you're living in the point known as the drama, But basically, you're living in the point that it's all the stories that go on of why division is taking place. So let me just make this a little bit more clear. So if you're traveling, how they measure this time and space is from, they'll take an object and they'll put it here, let's say a laser, and then they'll shine it to the closest, the next object that they want to measure. And the distance between where the laser is being shot and that object determines the time that it will take you to get there based on the speed. And this may sound like physics, but I think this is simple. This is metaphysics. This tells you that basically space creates time. So where we're at now is we're way away from the point of the Big Bang. We're deep into division. This is why when you look up at the sky, the stars are actually separate. Versus when you're flying closer to the origin point where the Big Bang took place, all the stars, as you're getting closer and closer, get brighter and brighter because you're getting closer to where all the stars were together. This means everyone on the spectrum. Yellow, pink, green, black, white, all of the colors of the spectrum on the Enneagram were collected before they were put through the prism or the prison. And the color that is associated with what you are before you get into the prism or the prison or the pyramid system is clear. Clear is the only absence of color. So what we're talking about is we're talking about the deeper we go into division, secularism, separating one plant from another, separating one state of mind from another, the further we're getting away. But we have the fuel to travel far because we're using a system that is based on conflict. So you see, conflict drives you further away from the source. It can drive you pretty far because it is based on another set of energy, just like the energy that is in your car. So some of the more powerful symbolism today is symbols such as the pentagram, which you see being used by the Chinese more often than anyone else. And it's because of the knowledge that is encoded within the pentagram equals phi. It equals combustion. Basically, it equals a continuous division that will never end. So if you can think about what an illusion really is and what this reality could possibly be, then you'll understand why they carry the pentagram around everywhere and you see it all on the flags and you see these kind of associations with it because it's a deeper knowledge that you can write volumes on. Same thing with the hexagram. If you notice the previous cycle, like the Brahmins, they utilize the hexagram, the sex or the six. It's being able to use the energetic or pranic force that is sexual and orgasmic in the reality to send energy and to receive energy and to interact and to communicate with other organisms. Because when you build up energy in your body, you're giving yourself more conductivity. And this conductivity actually gives you the level of being able to push yourself into the stage of consciousness that makes you awake. So what we're dealing with is that most people are in the energy or frequency that is very synonymous to sleep. So in sleep, anything could really happen. This is why it seems like anything goes. You have people on the dimension that are very intelligent, think a lot, want to develop great things, while you have another person on the dimension that just wants to lay back on the couch all day and do nothing and complain. But yet there's nothing here to differentiate that when those two beings die, that they'll actually want to go to a better place and want to go to a worse place based upon how they act. That's the knowledge that's removed from our society, is what was in the ancient teaching that showed you how to weigh a soul, how to weigh a ka. Like it's discernment really, but on a deeper level, you could see the elements with the third eye. So you can see the imbalance. So you knew if something was going to continue or if something was going, and how long it was going to continue based on its wobble. And right now, even with looking at Earth, if you understand the deeper systems of the encoding, Earth is on 365 days, not 360 days, which is a perfect circle. 360 days has everything to do with the Enneagram or the ancient systems that continue to rotate upon themselves. Basically, a society that is perpetual. That's why 9 continuously repeats itself. But when you have it 365, notice the 5 comes into play because 5 is phi. When you learn etymology, you learn that all these words connect. Fighting, fire, all of these words connect. So what you realize is that the 5 extra gods that were added to the pantheism, meaning to pan left and right, to go for all of the stages, the 5 extra gods cause an imbalance. And this is seen within the largest pyramid in the world, which is actually not in Egypt, that it's like functioning as a lead that keeps the entire planet on a wobble. Just like if you take a tire, and many of y'all have had rims, I've had a couple of rims, and you go take the rim in because it got bent, they got to hammer lead onto it, right, to straighten it back out. But what happens if you hammer the lead or the thing holding everyone back at the wrong point? Then you get a wobble on the wheel. So there's many pyramids and seeds in this planetary system that have been throwing the system off because they're not balanced. What happens when a pyramid or an entire belief system with codes like Ka and Ba and many different deeper words and tones and vibration starts to become misused? It throws the pyramid, because the pyramid is where the language actually came from. That's why Hebrew shows its identity by when you drop complete Hebrew down upon itself, it actually forms what they call now the Star of David, but which was really the Star of Dravid, because it's a Dravidian symbol, just like the swastika is a Dravidian symbol. These are Brahmins. You see what I mean? So what happens with us now is that we even look at now, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to get into the whole game here, but you have the system that's bought, the hacked religion, which is Christianity, starts off with Abraham as the major character and his wife Sarah. But this is the same Abraham of the Brahmin and Saraswati from a book that was written 12,000 years, if not more. They say 60,000 years before this book was even thought of. So people don't think that the Bible is directly plagiarized from Brahmic text or Eastern text. Then you go into the New Testament, you get the guy Christ, who is none other than Krishna, doing the same kind of Messiah role. But then if you say, okay, well, I already knew that, then think about Revelations, where you have the 7 churches that have to be, that need to be, or the 7 seals that need to be broke. And these 7 seals are none other than the 7 chakras, because when the chakras are sealed, you can't see any of this. This actually means that a wheel inside of your body, a planet, really, has stopped moving or has slowed down to a point where it's non-conductive. And so then that center shuts down. So all of your vision into that world, all of your insight into that experience, which you've already had, is shut down. And then it's almost like you're going through these experiences all over again. So what I'm saying is that when we power down, when we choose to go to sleep, the dream begins. Because we're immortals. So you should see sleep as synonymous with death, in a tense where there's no such thing as death. There's no such thing as dying. Dying means to divide. You see, die meaning two, dice. Mm-hmm. So it only means to divide. So when you divide, though, you get sleepier. Okay, a microcosmic version comes out. And so let me explain this very simply. When you divide, this is when you participate in sex or sex. I'm not saying anything is wrong or right with this. I'm just telling you, wake up, become an adept, realize what you're doing and where you're at. Sex or sex causes a division. That's why they're 2 interlacing triangles. So that sex.
And James, let me just interrupt briefly. Not only that, when you have sex, the ultimate result is egg hitting sperm, and then there's a division.
For sure, the child is a division.
You see those cells starting to divide.
Right, there's a mitosis. And then in addition to that, there's a microcosmic version of you and the other genetically involved person that you're with, encoded into this smaller version of you that comes out, and it doesn't even know where it is or what it's doing. It's lost for a prolonged period until it's taught where it is. And then when it's taught where it is, nowadays, it's taught a location that is not even where it is. So this leads, because remember, there's no such thing as death now, so there only needs to be an accompanying of a lowering of the vibration, and then the person become static in another reality, meaning that you will actually get in a physical, dense reality with physical things happening. But we should not forget that there are higher realities, if you want to give it that term, realities that are made of etheric substances, more purified substances. And we have a correspondence there that is also inactive. But when we awake that, when we collect ourselves back together rather than dividing ourselves, that's called 8, by the way. When you eat it, then you can get to the 9. See, you can't get to the 9 until you ate, right? So what is it that you need to eat? That's simple. You have to turn negative into positive, because everyone wants positive, positive, positive. Give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. But they don't know how to turn the negative into positive so that it can become a giver. So this is what we're talking about. And that reverses the person's cycle. It changes their centripetal to centrifugal, meaning it actually spins their torque in a different direction. So thus, they lock up the gears on death, and then they start heading towards the soul. Now remember that there's no such thing as souls, as in a plural soul. That's the oxymoron. The word means one. So as you collect yourself back together, you actually become a part of omniscience. And that is beyond the sun. And so what you'll experience then is you'll experience this, some call it astral travel, some call it lucid dream, where you'll actually go through the sun and it won't be hot. And then you'll come out on the other side, and then you'll witness the great council, which is all bright. Notice I didn't say it's white, it's all bright, meaning it's so much energy there. You can't see any differentiation. You can't actually see faces and forms, and you can sense energy, and it's just a lot. That's called the subjective plane from the Metu-Neter. When you reach the subjective plane, you kind of stand at the door, because everything that's in the subjective plane is what's used to create this physical reality. But it's a different stage of consciousness, Bodhisattva, Messiah, these kind of evangel. It's that stage of consciousness that's capable of becoming the bridge between the subjective plane in this world. That's why all of those individuals were known to be the ones who what? Went and talked to God, quote unquote, supreme being, for the people, meaning that this was the bridge. So all of us functions as bridges, though. It's just a bridge to what? That's what we need to really be getting into, because every time we talk, we speak out this verbal bridge, and then people get on it, and then it takes them to a certain destination. And so this is becoming responsible for the energy that you have, because when you lead a person into a destination that you can't get them out of, then you inherit a lot of different things. And so this is what we've been doing. We've been basically chasing our tails. It's really phi. Actually, no one has a tail anymore. If you understand the deeper level of what a tail is more vertebrae. Right? So in every human being, there used to be a tail back there. Sometimes in India, some people are still born with tails, and in other places you can see like a hole or a dent there on certain people, right? And that's because there was a tail there with more vertebrae, and that tail, T-A-I-L, is your tail, T-A-L-E, meaning your story. So when you want to see the domestication of the species and what it creates, that's what the human body is. But remember, we are more than the body. What I'm telling you is that the bodies and the vehicles that we've been put in have governors on them. That's why they're synonymous with the pentagram. They're constantly in conflict, this body. It constantly needs attention, constantly needs time. And so if you start getting associated with it, then this kind of locks you in it. And that's why it's called a pentagram. You see? So a pentagram...
James, let me ask you this question, because you talked about astral travel. Explain what astral travel is, and also, can a person master astral travel, and can they do it at will?
Well, astral travel is using one of your bodies, and we'll just use a system of 5 bodies right now, that you have 5 bodies, at least one they call the Ran. And this is talked about deeper in the Kemetan text, but it's a part of you that you actually send out. Every time you have a thought, I'm going to go to the store. The Ran goes to the store and comes back and lets you know if it's okay to go to the store. So this is like a buffer vehicle that we have that's faster than the physical body that we can send out. So this is one of them. The other one is like the dream body, and it depends on what level that you're actually dreaming in or sleeping in, but you have a body that you send out into a more subtle plane it's more of imploding. You don't really send it out. It goes inside. And that this body goes into another space and it starts to operate there. So what astral travel is you actually jump in one of these vehicles. Instead of them running on autopilot, then you actually know how to control it. Now, if people think that this is somehow, this couldn't be true, people are letting their bodies run on autopilot right now. Did you know that you can take control of your breathing and start breathing in a way that pushes air in your body, and your body implodes it with your oxygen into your blood, and then it gives you more energy? So it does that, but you have to go into that kind of breathing. But on autopilot, it just breathes normally. So this is the same thing with these bodies. They act normally and breathe normally as if they're on some kind of autopilot until you jump in them. And then when you jump in them, if you can assume command, then you can take them into other spaces, the spaces that they correspond to. And these spaces are very similar to timelines, meaning that it's like watching a gigantic clock. On certain timelines, the things that are going on there are yet to happen here, because it's like a program being sprayed out from a certain point, meaning that from the certain point, all of what's to come into manifestation below the speed of light is happening, i.e. a bang process. Remember, this big bang process is happening all the time. It's ideas colliding, it's people colliding. So at any point, there's always a point of origin, right? And so this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about there's a body that is capable of flying through fields that are utilizing a different level of language and programming, mainly sound, shape, and color, to be manifest. But you have the ability to go in them as an adept and to move things around that belong to you. Now, the thing is that now, can anyone do it? You know, I think my entire ascent into...
That's what I want to know. Can anybody astral travel?
Yeah,
because I want to astral travel if you can do it. Well, I'd love to.
Well, let's answer the question. What happens is that to say anyone can do anything on a three-dimensional reality tends to be a little immature. And the reason is because there are some people that are actually missing half of their brain. There are some people that are chemically infused that they are lost into their chemical infusion. So to say everyone can do it, I wouldn't be correct. It would sound quite like a huge gander. But the reality is that individuals who have even conceived the idea of such things, meaning that if you comprehend this at all, this means that you're capable of doing it. Because it's not something that you haven't done before. But we need to realize what lucid dream is and what astral traveling is traveling above the speed of light. This means that everything in this world is below the speed of light. It is in a vortex. That's why they say it's nothing new under the sun. So when you go beyond the sun, above the speed of light, that is when you get into this space that I'm speaking of. So it's one of those things where the energetic properties behind it, meaning that can your body produce enough bliss? Meaning all of your organs in your body produce a fluid. So this is either serotonin, melatonin, the pancreas, the liver. These different parts of your body produce a different kind of fluid, but in what quality? Meaning that if the liver is getting fed GMO foods and getting fed Kool-Aid and getting fed Twix bars, it's going to produce a very poor quality serotonin. But remember, serotonin is what actually makes you happy. Okay? Just like melanin. So our organs in our body are producing these substances. Okay? So what happens is that when we get into a level of realizing that and we start to change up the diet and we start to change, as they say, you are what you eat, what you're putting into your system, then the organs have the potential to activate, which would then turn on your chakra centers. So then when these centers are functioning properly, then they produce together a high quality substance, which you could just call the spice menage. This is what a lama or someone on that level is dealing with, because they are capable through their diet and through their mode of life to keep their organs, planets, universe in pristine condition. So anytime they need to harness the energy of a universe quite a bit, then they can turn it on. So that's the part of what's going on in the realities and in the societies and the systems that are really doing more damage now, is that the structure is set up to keep you away from this and to keep you deactivated. And so what happens is when you pour more of these toxins onto yourself, then it becomes difficult to awake. So that's the thing. It's the self-substantiation phase. You have to climb the ladder. It's something that you have to have the will, W-I-L-L, W-H-E-E-L. Remember, it's a rotor. Sator, rotus, tarot. Okay, this is the tarot. The tarot is your body. It's actually an immediate map to the universe. So it has to spin properly in order for you to be able to get above the speed of light. So what I'm saying to everyone is that this is something that you have to put a lot of intention into, your will, so that you can get out of this vortex. And so that's what you're dealing with. So it's not something that everyone can do.
So are you basically talking about the mastering of self?
For sure. I mean, of course. And self-mastery is learning that all is self. It's however long it takes.
And let me ask you this question. As well, James. Would you agree or disagree that the rulers of this world, in the literal sense, those that run the planet, those that are giving us the GMOs, know the truths that you're speaking to us and are giving us the GMOs, giving us the pollution, giving us all the bad things for our bodies to keep us in how Dr. Phil Valentine would call Operation Lockdown, keeping the body on lockdown. Therefore, those chakras would never awaken, and we can get out of the chains of bondage of the rulers of the world.
Of course. I mean, the Dukes are aware of what they're doing. I mean, see, the thing is that when we're operating on this material reality, and this is, of course, what's being pushed to the people more than anything, is the materialism, material. So despite the whole idea of material and cars and all these kind of things, it still has one effect to get a person away from spiritual. So in every tense, you have orchestrators in the reality that understand this, yes. And they understand if they push someone lower than them, if they can make someone Saturnalian or deaden like lead, then they can stand on top of them. And that's the whole idea of the reality that's built under this this inverted pyramid system, which is quite weird. But the reality is that, yes, you're dealing with dukes, shades, as in Shaddai. You're dealing with principalities, entities that you can't actually see with your two physical eyes because they're disincarnate, meaning they don't have car, they don't have a body. Remember, car means flesh. So this also will show you it's a vehicle, right? So they don't have fleshly bodies, they're disincarnate. So they ride around in bodies that are not made of flesh, and that's why people can't see them with their normal eye. With the third eye, and even with access to other chakras, depending on what level the entity is on, you can see the entities. And, you know, in simple trip to ayahuasca ceremony, you can see the entities because it's not so much as a visual thing. It's, you could feel the vibration. You could feel the frequency. That's the eye. See, the eye, I would tell people the eye is one of the last receptors used to confirm anything. Generally, you use senses like from the nose. The nose has several nerve endings. The nose is what senses whether a person is right or not. Like when you get, man, I don't like this. I don't know. I don't feel right about this person. That feeling is coming from the nose. That's why the nose was one of the most primordial senses that was installed on the body. And the reason why I'm saying
they say the nose knows.
Right.
There you go, words again.
Right, and then for hundreds of miles, animals can sense, and they try to make it to you like, oh, they're smelling. No, they have another system that they're using the nose to sense, and smell is the 3D version of it. But you can tell it miles away. You see what I mean? So obviously, let's take the practicality of this. What this means then is if you eat a lot of things like salt and that take the taste away, you know how if you plug your nose, you can't taste, right? So if you're trying to eat something,
right.
Somebody person don't know this, try to eat something you don't like, and then plug your nose and you can't taste it, right? So if your nose then doesn't work, then you can't sense. So this means that a person can't really sense what's wrong or right for them, like what they need to have as discernment, because the food can take away their senses through their nose. So that's the chemical war. So the chemical war can make a person an opposite sex. Shoot, there's something you can blow in a person's face and they'll forget who they are and who they ever were going to be. So that's what I was saying about there's a potency to this environment. Why is there such potency? Like, I think that's what we need to address right now is why is there such elements on a planet really full of what look like kids? Like, you get these kids some of that dust and they're done. You see what I mean? So it's because the fertilizer of the planet, men, was fertile. He was potent. So that means that the level of poison that also can be here, because the poison is also the super concentrated version. Notice anything that is super concentrated is a poison after a while. Like you can't take high concentration, anything, it burn right through your whole body. And it's because the potency. Right? Yeah, exactly. So this is what we're talking about. We have to keep oscillating back and forth in order to remain stable. We have to keep oscillating back and forth between both worlds. See, this is what it is to be neutral. This is what it means to be balanced. Many people think that balance and neutral mean standing still. That's not what it means. It actually means going back and forth to different destinations so fast that it creates a wave. A sound. Look at how look how waves are, right? They sound waves, right? In the studio, you can see the whole wave, right? So that's moving back and forth, 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 so fast that it's making this sound. So that's what a bridge walker does. That's what a bodhisattva does. Back into the subjective plane, back into this world, back into the subjective plane, back into this world. So fast, the world actually starts to slow down. Like that's when dream time, as the Native Americans call it, or dreaming true, as the OTO called it. This is when you get into a point where you're dreaming like the next day, and it's playing out exactly as you dreamed it, because this reality, as I explained, is on a lower cog, meaning that it is getting fed data after that goes on. And that's why any person who works on the spiritual plane finds themselves more superior than those who only work on the physical plane. And this is what created the principalities. And I want to make it very clear. I know we're probably coming to the top of the hour soon, but very clear. Understand just an idea of their ranks. This is not specific, but just understand how the system would work. On the bottom, you have the minion. The minion only works with the axe, meaning the pentagram. He only works with, or she only works with their hands. Okay, that's called the pentagram because you got 5 fingers. Those are known as the 2 hammers, or Thor's hammer. Okay, because everything in this reality is built off of our hands. Okay, so that's the minion. Then you have one level up from that, which is the sorcerer. The sorcerer is learning how to be the source. That's why it's called a sorcerer. And this is, I'm just giving you the rank of the dark hierarchy, okay? So the sorcerer is attempting to learn how to source power from the source, okay? The sorcerer is practicing most of the time, is in the craft most of the time, meaning always doing something that they don't actually know what they're doing yet, but learning, okay? Now, the minion below them doesn't deal with the spiritual level, so every time the minion has to come in contact with the sorcerer, who is his or her superior, then he's scared. He just crosses himself or something. Oh, he deals with me. Oh, God, getting me out of here. There's weird people. And this is what I'm trying to tell you is going on in these hierarchies, okay? So then the sorcerer is mastering over the minions, but the sorcerer has the Dark Lord as above him or her. And what the Dark Lord is appears as if they've been doing magic forever. That it's not something they're just learning. They know how to do it. And this scares the shit out of the sorcerer. I mean, the sorcerers stay under the possession of the Dark Lord because they know the Dark Lord can do real magic. And that's the check and base system. And then above the Lord is that what is a coalescing, because you need to understand what the top of the pyramid really means. It means a coalescing of all the energies that are in the base or below. It doesn't actually denote one specific entity, but an entity that has collected all of the energy. So all of the minions down there doing their dirty work, selling drugs and all that kind of stuff. All the sorcerers using the sigils, using Jay-Z, using Lil Wayne, and Kabbalistically correcting their names so that they pull energy. And all of that going on is creating a dark inverted pyramid. And then that thing that's on the top keeps the lords in check because it's omniscience in their system. You see what I mean? Because they've binded themselves and gone into rituals with themselves to bind themselves together. Because if you understand what the fallen angels had to do, is they had to bind themselves together by a pact or an oath on the Mount of Hermon, which is where we get our word harmony from, meaning they came together as a fasci or a bundle of sticks. One angel you can break. Several angels together become a lot more difficult to break. So do you see what I mean? This is the kind of structure, and this structure is found in nature. Nature is what makes you mature.
You were correct. We're coming up against a break.
Okay.
I want you to hold that thought and finish that thought. And then when you finish with that, we're going to talk about words and how words can manifest your reality.
For sure.
Okay?
No doubt.
You're listening to the Dino Show on Hollaback Radio.
Over here.
But with us right now is a fantastic brother, one of our young lions in metaphysics, James Evans Bomar III, a.k.a. Sevan. You still with us, brother?
Oh, for sure.
Brother, I want you to finish that thought on what you were talking about, and I can't get you back to that.
Oh, man, come on, stop that. I just went over to another planet and came back. But, we can get more into, I'm sure there was some direct questions available on the show just in regards to everything. But I sometimes like there to be somewhat of a space for us to take just a brief moment and ask ourselves, what is it that we're really looking for out of all this? Because, I tell people, man, sometimes you got these people out here, man, it's just like crabs in a bucket. Somebody will tell you, man, you don't need to be using computers, right? But they email it to you. Somebody will tell you, you don't need to be doing this or doing that or reading this, reading that. You don't always have to read something to follow it. You don't have to go into some kind of documentation as if you're going to become a follower of it. You can just observe. And this is what I've done to gather a great deal of information. But there also becomes times where, remember, experience is the real teacher. So you're going to have to get into some stage of your own consciousness to get ready to do away with fear. Because a lot of the fear that is in bed right now is closing the chakra centers. It's like the unwillingness to come back out and the unwillingness to do something with this. And this has a lot to do with the tools that we're using. So the ancient traditions do explain, as far as how they're brought to us now, they do explain a little bit about the potential of the body, but I think that the body has been constantly evolving, and that's why, or being transmuted somehow. Maybe, as I said, there is evidence that someone may be more involved in doing this directly, some type of colonizer that will move groups of people from one territory all the way into another territory in order to get those individuals to mix with other individuals. So people need to think that to understand genetics, or the genetic scientist is not just an individual who has some complex laboratory and some spaceship. It's just simply mixing one breed of individual with the next breed of individual. So even now, like if you look at, if we're producing some kind of element, even if it's melanin and someone else is not producing it, that means there's another organ or another gland in the body, because that's what produces this stuff. So it's not like you don't have to try to prove anything when you're going into the micro macro connection with things. Remember, I bought that splitter.
Absolutely. The call in number 646.
You can get the splitter and plug it in there, and then you can plug all the headphones.
James, talk to us about words and how your words can manifest your destiny. I'm a firm believer in that you can't speak certain things to life.
Well, yeah, I mean, what happens is though is that I think the real reason the world is as it is because it's on a lag. So thus it affords people to be able to say things and then undo them. And this is an interesting process.
What do you mean by the world is on a lag?
Well, as I explained before, is that from the first point of the emanation is where it begins. This is beyond the sun, above speed of light. And then from that point, it's sprayed out into whatever receives it first, gets it. That's what they call the firmaments or the heavens. So a firmament that's higher in the air will receive the information before a firmament that is lower on the ground. And notice how earth means the dirt. It doesn't mean the air. This planet's not called air. It's called earth. So this means that just because just us sheerly accepting that this is earth and we're standing on the ground and we cannot fly, it means something that can fly or has another spatial can get information before we get the information, as if it's a transmission. And this is really the foundation of what is called a magic anyway, because it's about attempting to enlist other beings that have the access to these other planes in order to give you information or to cause different things that would occur on another plane. So you see, it's one of those understandings that you have to really gain in order to really scope the entire, we call it the dream scope, but in order to be able to scope the entire reality. So again, Earth is on this lag. And so when you say something, you can recant it within maybe 3 or 4 days, and then it'll cancel it out before it actually starts to happen. Now, this actually works more in a negative way than it does a positive for most people, because generally they intend to do something amazing. And by the next thought, they've already convinced themselves not to do it. On top of that, to get into words, the words are backwards. So generally what you're saying means opposite to what you're really saying. And this is because the words have deeper meanings. So opposite only means ignorance. It means that you don't understand what you're saying. So what happens is that English language has 26 letters. 26 times 2 is 52. 52 gives us 52 weeks in a year. It also gives us 52 cards in a deck, which is the modern tarot. So that's what I was saying also about these upgrades to this system. This system, it's not just staying still. It's, what do they call that? It's exponentially multiplying upon itself. So what you get is you get a different geometry, and that's what throws us off. Next lifetime, instead of 5 and 6, which equals 11 being such a big thing, meaning fire and sex, 5 and 6 being together is such a big thing in this reality. In the next reality, maybe it's 8 and 1. And then what happens is that all the geometry on that planet is changed. So all of the entities and things look different. But guess what? There's nothing new. So it only takes pulling back off of all of it, which is the perspective. When you come way out of this thing, you'll see one design. When you fly all the way into it, it takes you to go all the way deep under an electron microscope before you see that design again. So we're talking about the point before the Big Bang and then the point after the last part of the Big Bang. And so that will give
James,
you a full experience.
Let me just interrupt just briefly. Mm-hmm. You said something that really struck a chord with myself. You said how you can speak something and you can recant it within 3 days. And how it resonated with me is, and this is to the listening audience, this was actually very much a learning moment for myself and hopefully for you guys. Do you know how many times I talked myself out of greatness? I was going to do something and, for lack of a better word, punked out, got scared, and didn't go for it. And I'm getting to the point in my life now where no more punking out. I'm going for what I want to go for, and I'm looking to achieve greatness, and I'm speaking it into reality. That just struck a chord with me, brother, but keep going.
Oh, I appreciate it, brother. I mean, and also everyone should know, don't get crazy about the words because it could be your worst enemy. There's much more that rise in intention, because intention was the first language. That's what the baby is using. The baby intends to go to the kitchen. It doesn't say, I'm going to go to the kitchen. It intends to go to the mother. That's why it doesn't say, I need to go to the mother, because it doesn't even have a language. So intention overrides in many cases, but still, be watchful of the words because they create worlds. And, and it's also a level of power because remember, what we're talking about with language, and I've talked about this, I think, on one show, but the fallen angels, accordingly, now fallen angel is a being that has had a great power at one point and then doesn't have that power in the stage in which they fall into. For whatever reason they choose to do that. That doesn't always mean that the entities are negative, but some of the stories that have been coming out is that there's some negative entities that have come from another stage of consciousness, which was higher, and then back into a lower stage of consciousness. But what they brought was a language. Now, I believe that personally that language has become a major stumbling block because it causes arguments and problems with communication. And I've seen this in tons of languages. And the reason is because languages, they move like blocks inside of a mind that's really like a curve. So what happens is that I believe that there's a point in the Old Testament where the God, apparently, who's a Germanic god, Gud, who's king, who's the Khan, who's Cohen, who's priest, a priest king. Okay, so you understand who you're dealing with, Gog, the Lord of the earth only. So this being gets pissed off from his high place, which is probably just a castle, right? And decides that those down building the Jed, which was basically cycling their energy and actually building the tower inside of their body, would accomplish greater things than even that got Gud in his aristocratic or parliament, because that's all the other entities really were. And decided to use language as a confusion tool, meaning it was the actual form of communication, the form of confusion that came to these people that were all on one accord was what? Their language got confused. So then it goes on that then no matter what they said to each other, it was as if they were not saying the same thing and none of them comprehended. And they eventually split up from each other or divided. right? So this is happening everywhere. This is happening in races of people. This is happening in relationships. This is happening with your children. Because of the language that we're using, we're not sitting down, holding the person, taking deep breaths while you're connected to their other center. We're not doing that. We're trying to talk it out. So the talking is only creating more blocks. It's creating more walls or laws. It's the same words, right? So once that starts going on, then you build up all these walls in your life. Now notice how phi is separated by walls. Phi can be seen in a seashell, by the way. So everyone just go take a seashell. They've cut seashell in half, and then you'll see each layer or each section of the seashell is divided by a wall. The wall builds up, and that's what develops the next level of the shell. So this is division, meaning that in the division symbol, you see a straight line in the middle, and then you see a dot on one side indicating a life form or a soul, and a dot on another side indicating another life form or a soul. And then this wall in the middle, meaning that division means that there is another version of you that you are not connected to. And even within the symbolism, percentage is the same thing. Percentage is to divide something, right? Based on its percentage. What do you get? Another dot. If this time it's just on the top left, and then another dot on the bottom right, and then a line between, meaning to divide, to put up a wall in between this world and the world to come. And so that's why these symbols that even you can go deep, you go into physics and you start looking at the symbols, you'll see the language of the alien. He's very intrepid, meaning that there is another life form here that is claiming to usurp Homo sapien, which is basically Ubermensch, a super slave. You see what I mean? So there is one, that's they say, evil has found a willing servant, meaning there's one that is cruel and intrepid. That's what Hitler even said, running across a superhuman who was AWAS, who's an extraterrestrial life form, a gray. A gray means the moon, no life. But what is it? It's the child. And if you up on your ancient knowledge, you'll know that the confined one was what was in the box in Egypt in the center point of the pyramid. Let me rewind, because I think there's some Kemetans maybe listening. Inside of the Great Pyramid, the confined one rests, meaning there was a being that they just called the child, Yaldabaoth, born outside of the pleroma, meaning not born with a mother, that became so destructive for the planet, it was basically trapped in time, which is what a pyramid does. It has an apex or a vortex point that creates a 0 point. This means there's no space and time in that area. And again, what you're seeing on top in Egypt, right, in Kemet, there's also on the bottom. It's a diamond. So in the center, there was a being there. So that being was removed by the horn one, Moses. Okay, and then the people took upon that God as their God because they were trying to get out of slavery. The Kemetans had progressed to a point where they were enslaving everyone who came into Lower Egypt. Okay, so that's the idea and the birth of the slave gods. So if people want to know why are these Jewish, meaning not really Jews, but kind of like it, following Africans, whatever, around the universe, sucking their blood all the time with their Cohens, Liar Cohen, Jared Cohen, all these priests running around sucking the blood of the earth, is because they were imprisoned by our people at certain points. And then they took a being that had a common interest with them, the confined one, and then bought that being out. And that being has been nothing but destruction, just like you see it in the Old Testament. It'll play one being against the other being. You got to go over there. You're the chosen one. You need to take the land. You're the original. Boom. Now conflict. I'll go with you. I'll go with you means your will. Notice how they had to carry the ark. If something's going to go with you, you don't have to carry it. Okay. So it's deeper metaphors. Menelik, MLK. What meant the horned one? It means Moloch, MLK. So you got an entire species that their codes are being rewritten, and very few to decipher those codes and then come up with some level of deprogramming. And guess what? You get little, if almost any help. People cannot recognize this from David Icke's speech. They can't recognize this from Jeff Rentz and the rest of these people that are out here playing spiritual. But yet, every time they get on the conversation, they have nothing new to say except for what has been dictated to them by the doom and gloom. Oh, this is what we're going to do now. It's going to be a missile. It's going to be a meteor. This is who they killed. This is who they hurt. Man, you got to get into the next stage of things. So I'm already there. And there's many with me that are already there. We're not proclaiming what we also need everyone else to do. It's already been done. It's just about waking up humanity. So notice this, the word bodhisattva, and we're kind of coming to the end here, and you hear a lot of these animals and insects that are in Costa Rica about to get into their nighttime thing. But the reality is a bodhisattva means one who takes a vow to ascend all species. So handle that. Meaning that the ones that were known to hold the bridge, the real Imhotep, was a bridge walker, one who knew how to stay in the 4D and a 3D at the same time. So this is difficult. We be wanting to tap out sometimes. So like you said, it's time out for that. I'm going back. Time out for that fear, because you could have been above the speed of light. But trust me, it's the gauntlet. Like there's nothing here that equals that you won't be putting in the energy and the effort, but it will give you back what you put in 100-fold. Because that's the kind of the energy we're dealing with. I'll say this in conclusion so people don't think that I'm demonizing sex and sex. Understand that the level of power that is in reproduction has got us sitting on 8 billion souls. One soul.
Wow.
One soul and 8 billion spirits. Because if you understand a spirit, difference between a spirit and a soul is, of course, the spirit is the individual being that is disincarnate that still thinks that it's separate. This is what creates a demon. Spirit is a particular group of species. Then you have a demon, and we're here at the end. A demon is been demanned, meaning the manhood has been taken away. It has no generative principle, and it doesn't have its balance. So understand that when a person dies and leaves the earth, if they leave in the stage in this condition, they don't go anywhere. They actually remain here in another vibratory frequency, and those frequencies be instigators, meaning they're the ones that are in the environment always whispering in your ear, meaning their voice is like a whisper. It's like your thought, but it's not your own thought. It's a thought against your will saying, oh man, you see that person? Oh man, I can't stand the way. Oh, I'm tired of this. That's the demon. You see, so this is the thing. Like we have to wake up, bring all this stuff centralized, eat it. Because, take your medicine, sometimes it's bitter, and then get into your 9, meaning get into your perpetual mode and get ready to blast off. Because, it's already going on above the speed of light. They're already together. None of the entities are warring anymore because they don't have separate identities. They're living through each other omnisciently. There's no loss, only gain. And I'll explain that. The last thing that people remember, some people, they've been falsely told that once you get into this higher stage of consciousness, then you lose all your memories and all your lifestyle and whoever you thought you were. Quite the contrary, my friend. You actually gain the ability to have enough amplification to project yourself through all the entities that you have the power to amplify through. That's what, again, the power of the subjective plane is because everything here is created from it. So it feels everything based on the creations that exist here. That's the position that we want to be. We give now rather than take. And then what's created from what we give, we live through. That's it.
Brother, I have to thank you again for coming on air and imparting the wisdom that you do have. And I'm getting there. I have a couple of barriers, a couple of dividers, have a line that is kind of holding me up a little bit, but I'm working on that. I'm working on trying to master self. But brother, I want to thank you again for coming on, and I gotta have you come back on maybe in a couple of months when you have a little bit more time, because I really wanted to talk a little bit about sexual magic, because that is one that I think is confounding many relationships and whole nations and communities, to be honest with you.
For sure.
But brother, thank you so much for coming on air and doing your thing, and let people know how they can correspond with you.
Sure. You can actually reach us at astralquest.com. You can get access to all of our platforms, which are absolutely free. And then if you want our archive of spiritual information, it's at resistance2010.com. And then we just put up a brand new site that's into the deep levels of fringe, especially with utilizing some of the substances available on the planet that are able to put the body into high spin, and that's at realmdynamics.com. Again, that's realmdynamics.com. So that's it. You can find us anywhere on the internet.
Very good, brother. I appreciate you tremendously. And you enjoy that nighttime down in Costa Rica, and I'll be in contact with you soon, okay?
Okay, Dino, I do appreciate it. Thanks again for having me and hosting the show. And then also to the people that are listening, thanks for keep pushing that energy and cycling that energy with others and sharing the information. It's been truly magnificent. I came to Earth, I got the T-shirt, so it's it's one of those things like I'm in this.